this opportunity. As well as being the Executive Director of Solar Cookers International, or SCI. I'm also editor of the SCI Digest, a publication that drives action and leverages global relationships for the solar cooking sector. SCI is a 501c3 NGO dedicated to promoting free, no-emission, clean, sustainable solar energy for cooking and water pasteurization solutions worldwide. Solar cooking technologies save lives, improve livelihoods, empower women, and protect the environment. These are all benefits and outcomes that people in the clean cooking sector are well familiar with. SCI leads the global solar cooking sector, weaving the network of more than 500 global partners to achieve project advocacy and research goals. SCI curates the world's premier resource of solar cooking technologies and leads a solar cooker performance evaluation process that harmonizes with the International Organization of Standardization TC 285 standard for clean cook stoves. Through SCI's special consultative status with the United Nations Economic and Social Council, ECOSOC, solar cooking advocacy efforts help achieve the 17 Sustainable Development Goals. Next slide, please. SCI's mission and vision is to improve human and environmental health by supporting the expansion of proven, clean, sustainable cooking solutions in vulnerable world regions, especially in the last mile. Next slide. Today we'll be unpacking a number of strategic goals. Clean, sustainable solar cooker technologies have improved in quality and performance over the past 30 years. And as the hub and connector of the global solar cooking sector, SCI leads advocacy and research efforts and builds sector capacity. We gather data and network the sector to influence changes in policy, practice, and research and development. And these actions amplify the adoption of high-quality solar cooking technologies. Next slide. Affiliated SCI partners conduct successful solar cooking in more than 130 countries. Today we have a large audience from many sectors. Kavanaugh, will you post the first poll question that will help identify participants in today's webinar? Okay, looks like the majority are from the solar thermal sector. Let's take about 15 more seconds for the votes to continue coming in. Okay, thank you. Let's continue. Today's presenters will provide details about the latest developments in 3 strategic areas and offer opportunities for partner engagement. SCI's Science Director, Dr. Alan Bigelow, will focus on SCI's research and United Nations advocacy work. I'll discuss our future direction. And first, Ms. Caitlin Hughes, SCI's Program Director, will bring you up to date on SCI's capacity building work and international advocacy efforts. Caitlin, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you very much, Julie. Next slide, please. Many people know that solar cooking is a good idea in multiple respects, many of which Julie touched on. And being able to quantify and communicate those benefits is essentially important. People have asked great questions, such as, how many solar cookers are there? And what is their impact on our global and planetary health? Next slide, please. Solar Cookers International has developed a variety of tools to answer these questions and to help our partners answer these questions as well. The Solar Cooking Adoption and Impact Survey standardizes fuel use questions for projects. Responses should be gathered before and after people own solar cookers. All of our partners are encouraged to use the standard survey and share their results. The Global Alliance's recipe for developing adoption impact indices was used as a reference in creating the survey by Solar Cookers International and the working group it led. The Quick Needs Assessment helps determine if solar cooking is an expressed felt need by the residents of a community. This is a key step very relevant to project success when introducing a new technology. The survey analyzes if the situation is set for behavior change, and it's based on a survey created by the Food and Agricultural Organization. The Solar Cooking Wiki, which can be found at www.solarcooking.org, is managed by Solar Cookers International. It's the world's largest online database of solar cooking information. It's free, accessible to the public, and automatically translated into 37 different languages. It has information on best practice guides, how to make or where to buy a solar cooker, partners by country, news, and more. There are over 1,700 pages of information. As the sector leader, gathering, compiling information on the solar cooking sector, SCI is able to share this data with other stakeholders, such as the Renewable Policy Energy Network, or REN21, and the Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves. This places solar cooking prominently in the discussions of similar organizations and key decision makers. Next slide, please. Having compiled sector-wide global data is incredibly important when sharing the successes, scale, and impacts of solar cooking. Through its careful data collection and analysis, SCI has identified more than 3.2 million solar cookers, directly impacting over 11.5 million people. SCI estimates over 4 billion meals have been solar cooked using solar thermal. And solar cookers globally have a thermal heat capacity equivalent to 377 megawatts. It's estimated that they reduce carbon dioxide emissions over the course of their lifetimes by 26 million tons. And according to the World Bank, the global cost of air pollution per year is approximately 1.6 trillion US dollars. Therefore, solar cooking has quite the opportunity to impact global economic and environmental savings. Next slide, please. To continue to scale to reach the demand of 3 billion people, SCI empowers its partners with knowledge and connections to develop their own financial sustainability. For example, SCI partnered with the Global Alliance for Clean Cook Stoves to offer the Boost Social Entrepreneurship Workshop immediately following the 6th SCI World Conference held in Gujarat, India in January 2017. This 2-day workshop empowered solar cooking partners from 4 continents to develop their business models through direct feedback and interactive learning. SCI also represented the solar cooking sector at the Social Capital Markets Conference in San Francisco, California, last October. There, SCI was able to introduce social investors to the concept of solar cooking and connect solar cooking partners with business mentorship programs and opportunities for funding. Next slide, please. SCI also helps partners within the solar cooking sector share their expertise with each other so that everyone can learn and benefit. For example, SCI hosted the popular webinar, How to Promote Integrated Solar Cooking as a Social Business, 2 examples of success in Africa, which examined case studies in Uganda and Mali. A recording of this webinar and others is available for Solar Cookers International Associates. Next slide, please. Now I'll turn it over to Dr. Bigelow to discuss more about SCI's research.
Thank you, Kate. This is Alan Bigelow here, and I am the Science Director for Solar Cookers International. And we'd like to start this next section with a poll. So Kavanaugh, could you please go to the next slide, which is our second poll? Okay, let's wrap that up. Okay, wonderful. So this is good to know to help let me know how much detail to get into about the testing. At Solar Cookers International, we have developed a performance evaluation process, which we call the PEP for short. And this is essentially a response to the expressed need from the solar cooking sector that there be a neutral organization that could have the capacity to test solar cookers and their performance. So in responding to that need, SCI has harmonized with the development at the ISO TC 285. This is the International Organization for Standardization's work on clean cooking and clean cook stoves. And SCI is engaged with two delegations, the US and the Kenya delegation to the ISO standards. So SCI's testing platform automates the ASAE S580.1 protocol. It's a pre-existing protocol for testing and reporting solar cooker performance as a single measure in watts. So the watts is the unit for power. SCI is now listed as a regional testing and knowledge center on the Global Alliance's website. And we are also now introducing another testing center, which is the Center for Rural Technologies in Nepal. This slide shows some of the introduction of the test station during a 2-day training session at CRT Nepal. And I'm glad to say that right now we are open for business at 2 sites here in the United States and at 1 site in Nepal. We will continue to expand the testing capacity for solar cookers so that there will be regional sites worldwide. Next slide, please. So we have several opportunities for engagement on the testing side. And I'd like to first emphasize that people are asking for test results. At SCI, we are fielding these questions. People are asking, have you tested this cooker or that cooker? So I just wanted to share that information, that this is something that is that people are asking for. I would also encourage manufacturers to get your solar cooker tested. There are a number of solar cooker products out there that people can choose from, but as well, there are prototypes that are being developed right now. So I encourage the manufacturers to also consider having their prototypes tested according to these international standards while they are being, while their prototypes are being developed, while their designs are being refined. And we would also like to talk to other groups that are established as testing centers or who are interested to become a testing center to contact us. SCI has open source material on its website that can guide one in building your own test station and also how to use it. Next slide, please. This is an exciting update from SCI. As you can see in the picture, we are looking into solar PV induction cooking. And first of all, to clarify, there are 2 versions of solar energy, 2 types of solar energy. There is thermal, which is really what SCI focuses on. And then there is solar electricity. And this is a very common and widespread version of solar energy. And so there has been more interest these days where we've been hearing about using solar PV for cooking, PV for photovoltaic. I'm a physicist, And over the past 10 plus years, I have experience in designing and working with off-grid solar PV systems. And I have completed the entry-level PV course and exam offered by the North American Board of Certified Energy Practitioners. So with this increased interest in solar PV induction cooking using induction cookers, SCI decided to try it out. So this slide shows my pilot setup where I'm using commercially available components that actually belong to me and that I'm very familiar with. So just to point out the components, we have a solar PV array. There are 3 75-watt panels that are 12 volt nominally rated. I have a battery bank of 240 amp hours of energy. That's a 12 volt system. A charge controller, a pure sine wave inverter that's rated for 2000 watts, and a brand new portable induction cooker, which is rated at a maximum of 1,800 watts. I've listed the cost of those items on the side here, and I just want to point out that this is one particular example of trying to do this. And while the cost total is 1,000, almost 1,700 here in the US, there is an additional cost, which is for the batteries, because they have a replacement cost, which may be about every year or so if this is going to be used regularly. And one must remember that there is time needed for charging the batteries. Okay, so those are the components that are used here, and in theory, these numbers that I show here in the specifications for these components suggest that this should work. However, in practice, and as an experimental physicist, I do appreciate this very much, that the story can be different. And so the unexpected challenges that I found were manifest in that with all of this equipment, I was really only just able to boil a cup of water, or just barely able to cook one lunch during midday, full sun, for 2 people until the inverter started complaining and shutting off. So essentially, this is showing the point that I was not able to cook in an appropriate way with this device on the batteries alone. I did need to have the solar in full sun to really make this happen. But the hope for solar PV cooking, from my perspective, what I'm hearing, is that one could use this on batteries alone at night or on rainy days, which continues to be one of the challenges for solar thermal cooking. So with my setup, I wasn't able to cook on batteries alone, but I'd like to welcome people to contact me for further details about my experience and suggestions that I may have. SCI's takeaways from this trial run and from our monitoring of what's going on in this particular sector is that solar PV cooking is in the research and development phase right now. A common aspect to both solar PV and solar thermal is the need for sun. So availability of the solar resource applies to both approaches. Reoccurring costs for the battery replacement about every 2 years, depending on use. One needs to keep that in mind when pricing a system. And while SCI is interested in monitoring these approaches, we share comments by 2 of our global advisors listed here. Godfrey Moira from Kenya mentions that solar PVs can be successful for institutional or communal cooking, like in camps and informal settlements, or for commercial applications, but it's too costly for individual households. Dr. A.J. Chandak in India comments that these solar cooking systems are suitable only for remote, rural, and tribal areas where there is no power. However, it's impossible to provide them something that costs over $1,000 US. Okay, well, that is our update on solar PV cooking, and we were interested to see how this goes forward. Next slide, please. So to talk about the advocacy role of SCI, next slide, please. Advocacy is supported by content from SCI's capacity and research direction as well. So I would like to point out to start that since 1996, SCI has held special consultative status at ECOSOC, which is the United Nations Economic and Social Council. SCI has an advocacy team, which includes SCI staff, global advisors, board members, and volunteers in New York and in Geneva. With special consultative status, we have access to the grounds and to be able to participate at events such as the Commission on the Status of Women, CSW, and the High-Level Political Forum, HLPF. Those are two highlights at the United Nations that we participated. This coming year, basically in July, this next July, SCI has a shared exhibition booth at HLPF 2018 with partner the Public-Private Alliance Foundation, PPAF. And we will be spotlighting our current efforts in Haiti. Now, this is really a wonderful dovetail with HLPF this year to have this opportunity with an exhibition space, because HLPF 2018 will spotlight some of the sustainable development goals that are particularly of interest to SCI and the Global Alliance. Goal 6, which is to ensure the availability and sustainable management of water and sanitation for all. And Goal 7, to ensure access to affordable, reliable, sustainable, and modern energy for all. There are other sustainable development goals being spotlighted at the upcoming HLPF, which I should say is the time where nations give their voluntary national review, or in other words, their report card, their report on how well they are doing toward meeting the Sustainable Development Goals. I'd like to emphasize that solar cooking supports all 17 of the UN Sustainable Development Goals. And during the UN meetings, there is a great importance for evidence-based data as the sector contributions to achieving the SDGs. So SCI welcomes data coming in from the field. Thank you to all of the partners who provide updated information. And I'd also like to stress the importance of high-impact partnerships. So not simply attending these events and participating in them, but the outcomes of forming strong partnerships and developing these relationships to really get things done. And this is a message that we hear from the United Nations leadership itself, that they cannot achieve these SDGs themselves, so they rely on partners, including the members of civil society. Likewise, the members of civil society, such as our own organization, will need to have partners in order to get things done. Okay, I'd like to turn things back to Caitlin to continue some other aspects of SCI's advocacy role. So next slide, please. And back to Caitlin.
And I'll talk more about COP23, a specific example of how we partnered with other organizations and shared information with government leaders to get things done, as Alan said. So Solar Cookers International represented the solar cooking sector at the United Nations Climate Conference, also known as COP23, in Germany this past November. There, we educated government leaders, such as Dr. Alice Iku, who you can see in the picture. She's the Honorable Commissioner of the Nigerian Ministry of Climate Change and Forestry. We were able to educate her about solar cooking, and now Dr. Iku is a proud Solar Cookers International Associate. She's working on incorporating solar cooking into her existing government programs to empower her people. Solar Cookers International also educated government leaders from Papua New Guinea, South Africa, and Somalia, just to name a few. SCI informed people not just physically present at COP23, but those all around the world, with 4 press conferences and more than 42,000 social media impressions or likes during that time period surrounding this event. One specific action SCI empowered government leaders to do is to include solar cooking in their NDCs, or Nationally Determined Contributions. Next slide, please. These are each country's specific plans on how they will mitigate and adapt to the effects of climate change. 2 countries, Somalia and the Marshall Islands, have already included solar cooking in their NDCs. 43 additional countries recognize the impact that cooking strategies have on the environment. Every country has the opportunity to include solar cooking as a powerful solution in its plan to address climate change. It was especially powerful showing government leaders the global map of 3.2 million solar cookers. I specifically recall the Minister of Papua New Guinea saying, "I want my country to be on that map," and he's now working to implement solar cooking in his country. It also allowed many leaders to see what a powerful solution already exists in so many different places. Next slide, please. As you can see, SCI has 30 years of experience and staff experts who are pioneering solar cooking testing, leading data collection, and driving sector action and best practices. Next slide, please. We invite anyone to visit solarcookers.org to learn more about how you can consult SCI on any variety of services to enhance your project success. These services include project design, the quick needs assessment, baseline and evaluation surveys, solar cooker design testing, solar radiation analysis, data analysis and interpretation, partner and resource referrals, and project promotion through the Solar Cookers International Association. Next slide, please. We also invite partners to join the Solar Cookers International Association. This is a group of academics, decision makers, designers, manufacturers, entrepreneurs, innovators, advocates, humanitarians, environmentalists, and NGOs with a high impact on solar cooking worldwide. There are individual and organizational levels with different benefits. Individual benefits include a feature article in the SCI Digest digital newsletter, priority consideration for travel funding for SCI events, access to SCI webinar recordings, and more. Organizational benefits include individual benefits for a set number of individuals. It also includes additional benefits for the organization, such as exposure through SCI's vast network, including more than 27,000 Facebook followers. This is a great way for our partners to share their successes and for increased recognition and awareness, both within and beyond the solar cooking sector. Next slide, please. Now Julie will explain more about the future direction of SCI and how you can be a part of it as an SCI associate.
Thank you, Caitlin. Next slide, please. SCI builds capacity to support grassroots efforts. The SCI Board of Directors strategic plan focuses on advocacy to support health and environmental goals and improved energy access. As Alan and Caitlin demonstrated, research and performance evaluation and capacity building provide the evidence base for advocacy efforts. To read SCI's strategic plan in full, visit solarcookers.org. There are many opportunities for you to engage with SCI. For example, tomorrow morning Eastern Time, Dr. Bigelow will travel to Haiti at the invitation of Haitian partners. He'll consult with academics, technical experts, advocates, and project directors, and visit potential testing and community project partners who want to assess solar cooker technologies to use in their communities. If your interest is advocacy, there are opportunities for your organization to engage with SCI this year. Two of many advocacy events we're focusing on are the UNFCCC COP24 in Katowice and the High-Level Political Forum at the United Nations, New York. Kavanaugh, will you post the next poll question, please? If you will be at COP24 and would like to collaborate or arrange a meeting with SCI, we would enjoy beginning the conversation with you. Let's take 15 more seconds for this poll question. Thank you. If you weren't able to participate in the poll by emailing info@solarcookers.org, again, we can begin that conversation with you. Thank you, Kavanaugh. If you would like to learn more about the roles of SCI directors or SCI global advisors in promoting clean, sustainable cooking, please visit our website or contact info@solarcookers.org. Solar Cookers International thanks the Global Alliance once more for partnering on this webinar to update Global Alliance partners on current developments in the clean, sustainable solar thermal cooking sector. And also we thank the SCI Board of Directors, global advisors, associates, donors, volunteers, and staff for making this work possible. Kavanaugh?
Great. Thank you, Julie, Caitlin, Alan, for that terrific overview and presentation. I am sure the participants on this webinar found it extremely interesting and useful. I'm pleased to share that we are moving into the Q&A portion of the webinar, and looks like we've already received some terrific questions, and I'll begin fielding those questions and reading them out loud for SCI to answer. So, starting with the first one, so if I understand this question correctly, this refers to one participant that made the observation that fossil fuels will likely diminish and globally. And so vis-a-vis this situation, what is the view of Solar Cookers on, I suppose, this development, and is this a opportunity for solar thermal cooking to improve availability and access globally? I hope I got that right. So yeah, Caitlin, Alan, or Julie, any thoughts on this long view perspective?
Sure, Kavanaugh, this is Julie. We're all aware that people use multiple devices and often multiple sources of fuel for the really important cooking and water pasteurization function. And through human history, when one resource is no longer available, then we need to find an available resource or a better one. I think there's been a global shift in awareness away from fossil fuels, both for cost purposes, for environmental purposes. So yes, definitely solar thermal is an excellent way to use the solar resource for cooking. It's highly efficient. And Alan, is there anything particular that you would like to add to this?
Sure, I agree. This is an opportunity for SCI and really all of those working in the sustainability area. And I would like to just encourage everybody to learn how to solar cook if you haven't already. And once you learn, practice it as regularly as you can. I solar cook in New York, and I can share that there are benefits for me on my energy bill that I actually use less energy for cooking that I have to pay for. And so this is a way that everybody on this planet can start to turn away from their fossil fuel usage. And one particular benefit that we feel here in summertime, for instance, where inside the home, you may prefer it to be cooler than it is outside. Well, if you need to cook and you can have the cooking happening outside in the sun, then that keeps your home cooler because you're not introducing heat from cooking indoors. So those are some thoughts, but I would like to encourage that everybody know how to do this. And once you know how, do it regularly, tell people about it. It truly is what I would call a low-hanging fruit also for nations, for entire countries. When I'm going to be in Haiti starting tomorrow, this is certainly going to be an opportunity there to talk with the stakeholders that at the national level, as Haiti looks toward sustainable practices, this is something that as a country it can showcase during high-level meetings such as the HLPF or the COP meetings that are part of the United Nations engagement. Okay, yes, great question. Yeah, thank you.
Great, thank you, Julie and Alan. I think sticking to this theme of looking forward into the future, we have another question pertaining to a little bit of that. I believe this question is a little more specific to the actual solar thermal cooker products themselves. Do you envision that these products will evolve and change? Will there be a combination of heat storage, for example, indirect or direct cooking, community or household? Thoughts on this?
Those are great questions, Kavanaugh. This is Julie. I'm certain Alan will have very specific contributions to make to this question, but generally, yes. If we follow what's happened over the past 30 years with solar thermal cooking technologies, we have seen huge improvements as well as the proliferation of so many different kinds of designs. There are hundreds of designs of solar cookers available, and we're especially excited to see local input and local variations in design that reflect local cooks' needs in many regions around the world. Of course, one of the important areas of focus now is how to bring down the production cost of these products. Solar thermal cookers have the advantage of once someone has a durable, high-quality solar cooker, they break the cycle of dependence on purchased fuels or gathered fuels, so that is an immediate, almost windfall for economics for families in terms of their time or in terms of cash that they're able to save. One of the reasons that SDI is focusing on testing is particularly to address the proliferation of designs and to promote the high quality designs. SCI is brand agnostic, and we promote all high quality, durable, high performing solar cookers. Alan, are there any points that you would like to add, especially from your perspective with having evaluated so many designs?
Yes, thank you, Julie. We launched the performance evaluation process a year ago, starting with a pilot run in New York and in California to validate our testing approach. And it was very interesting through testing over a dozen different types of solar cookers, really among the three types, which are reflective panel cookers, box ovens, and parabolic reflectors, and including an evacuated tube model. We found some very interesting trends. Overall, we did find that size is certainly important, in that as you have a larger collector, you are starting with more power in the first place. So that is a common theme. But we also notice that there are intricacies in the whole system of a solar cooker. It's not only the reflectors and collectors and but also the cookware, the insulation quality, foremost the greenhouse, what we call the greenhouse, which is a clear envelope, meaning that sunlight can get in and heat cannot get out. So much like the greenhouse of our planet. And that aspect of the solar cooker, I'll just give an example that at SCI we learned a great deal about that in the past, the Cookit, which is a simple solar cooker design by SCI, with a cardboard substrate, reflective material, a black cooking pot, and a plastic bag as a greenhouse. We found that by replacing the plastic bag with 2 large Pyrex bowls, one on top of the other as a clamshell, and you put the cookware inside that functioned extremely better, about twice the wattage in terms of standardized cooking power as we would have with the plastic bag. So right now we can no longer encourage people to use the plastic bag, I think, unless they were in an emergency situation, a survival type situation. But the performance really picks up when you look at the details and optimize them. So that we've learned some things through the testing program. And also another very important aspect for the designers is to listen to the users. Primarily the women cooks who are using solar cookers have things to say. And we encourage inclusive design. Listen closely to the feedback and incorporate the feedback into the development of your solar cooker. There are opportunities worldwide for local production using locally sourced materials. And for inspiration, I'd like to point to the Solar Cooking Wiki for finding some open source designs. There are dozens that are posted there that could be seen as inspiration. And the thermal storage aspect, the heat battery, is what I've heard a very important aspect. And I believe this, but I've heard this from folks at the high level that they believe that with thermal storage, this will really take solar cooking to scale. And we are excited about that prospect and are encouraging the designers to look at ways to bring thermal storage into their designs. Yeah, excellent question. Thank you.
Kevin, I will add a little bit onto Alan's answer as well. We've spoken primarily about the watts test that SCI is focusing on right now, but we understand that more than power is involved in a good, effective cooking experience. So there are an additional series of usability tests that SCI is working on as well to evaluate the overall cooking efficiency. And so we'll gradually be sharing those as those are more fully developed as well.
Great, thank you, Julie and Alan. Yep, those are absolutely important points about usability and integrating users into the design process. So switching gears a little bit here, Alan, I'm sure you can appreciate that your PV solar discussion has prompted some really interesting questions and reactions, actually. One of these questions asks, and this is an interesting word, so maybe you have an interpretation of it, Alan. But someone asks, what is the autarky of your induction system? And could you mention the cost of cables and the special magnetized pots as part of your the test that you conducted?
Kevin, I need you to repeat the first word that you mentioned.
Yeah, whoever asked it, maybe you can clarify what you mean in the question box, but maybe while he does that, Alan, you could talk a little bit about some of the costs of the other accessories as part of your PV solar system.
Yeah, okay. Well, I didn't include the other costs in my list there because they are I would consider more minimal. In fact, the cookware that I used was a magnetic, it's a stainless steel induction compatible frying pan, and those costs will change depending on where you are, where you're buying them. But I think in many cases, the induction cooker can use cookware that many have already. But that cost would be minimal compared to the rest of the system. Cabling, I actually used scrap wire that I have available, so I didn't include that either, but again, that's minimal. Did you find that what the word was? I just didn't quite hear what that was.
Yeah, so the word refers to days without sunshine.
Okay. Yeah, well, if you have days without sunshine and you want to be cooking, then clearly you're having to do that on the battery alone. And the amount of electricity that is required for cooking, in general, when you are looking to heat, to use electricity for heating aspects, it's very heavy. It's a heavy draw on your system. So in my prototype, I would really only be able to cook for one meal, and then I would need to recharge, and it might take a good day in fact, for that system, at least a day to charge that back up. So for cooking for multiple days when there is no sun, you're going to really need a large battery bank. So please consider the costs therein, and also the environmental impact of those batteries, because the more you use them, the more you cycle them, the faster you're going to need to replace them. You're gonna, and there's a cost there, but also consider the environmental impact of then disposing of these rechargeable batteries. So days without cooking, look very closely at your numbers. I would be happy to talk about this additionally at length, maybe through email. So whoever asked the question, if you have very specific case that you would like to discuss, I think it really needs to be looked at down to the needs and the numbers involved to be able to size the system appropriately. Maybe that will be part of our consultancy aspect. Okay, thank you.
Great, thank you, Alan. This was a really interesting comment that one of our participants asked, and they also express agreement that there is a lot more that needs to be researched and a lot more innovation to come out of the PV solar sector. They would, however, be interested in learning, Alan, if you know of, it sounds like there is not a very high percentage at the moment of available aperture power that gets converted to DC. And there are, as you know, many challenges from converting DC to AC because most of the heaters only use AC. Are you familiar with any breakthroughs in this kind of conversion? And what are some of the limitations and challenges of this type of conversion? And what are the implications maybe for consumers and households?
Okay, that's a great question. And it's true that every time you convert from DC to AC and vice versa, you will lose something through the efficiency aspect of that conversion. And I learned something about inductor cookers at the Global Alliance Clean Cooking Forum in India, in Delhi, in 2017. And that was more about the detail of these induction cookers. And that is that while you plug them into your wall, typically, which is AC, the unit itself will convert that to DC only to reconvert to AC to drive the induction coils at a different frequency. So built into the commercial model itself are two steps of conversion. there were some very interesting presentations at the forum, and these folks who are at the research stage of this development were looking at ways to actually cut out some of those steps to minimize the number of conversions. So they were in many ways hacking their induction cookers to find ways around this to make them more efficient. So perhaps those who have experience and the capacity to work on the innards of something like an induction cooker, great, do it. But also, even that, we saw that those presentations gave, well, there was room for creative financing for how do you share a system among, for instance, several families who might want to use it. And it started to sound like a timeshare. Okay, so family 1 will cook from 5 to 6, family 2 will cook from 6 to 7, that kind of thing. So it seemed a little challenging there. And then also one step beyond that was that this group of researchers was admitting that they need more guidance into the social and cultural aspects that will these new approaches be accepted. And that's where I saw an opportunity to invite these researchers to join SCI and to basically benefit from the number of years of expertise that SCI has in cracking those nuts to learn more about the social and cultural acceptance aspects. So, okay, I hope that answers the question. Thank you.
Terrific. I think we'll have time for a few more questions. I have here to, I have a question here on the participant may be a little more interested in learning a little bit about how this type of storage works, but Alan and team, could you expand and talk a little bit more about the concept of thermal energy storage and how that works, and what kinds of products and mechanisms exist to support this?
I can begin to answer this one. This is Julie. I'm aware of at least 5 different organizations or individuals working on solar thermal storage solutions. The materials involved are usually proprietary because many of these are in the experimental or prototype stages. They range from waxes to thermal mass to phase change, different kinds of phase change materials. One of our associates, Dr. Anthony Lipona from Madrid, had done some extensive work on erythritol, for instance, as a phase change material for thermal storage. So finding a material that will produce energy and then being able to store it safely and efficiently for future use is definitely a way to boost the usability of solar thermal cookers. Alan or Caitlin, would you like to add some other comments? That was kind of an overall introduction for people who are perhaps not familiar with the whole solar thermal storage, but either of you may have some specifics to contribute to.
Yes, Julie, this is Alan. I'd be happy to give a few more points. You're right that there are crude approaches and then there are modern approaches, as I like to say. That the crude can involve large masses of material, such as blocks of metal, and people have used various combinations of rocks. And there's no joke there, because there have been some prototypes that have worked, and where people have been able to store the heat during the day and then cook at night, or even cook in the following morning. On the side of the phase change materials, so more of a modern approach, from what I'm hearing, some of the concerns are to be able to achieve the temperatures that are needed for cooking. And with that, the number of cycles that a device could work through. So while it sounds to me that the temperatures have been achieved, that a product would really have a long life. Maybe think of a rechargeable battery, that it might work well at first, but as you use that product, after a while, the battery just starts to not hold its charge so well. So a similar aspect there that needs to be refined. Of course, with this, we won't know what the price will be until these products go to market. But I would like to touch base on the heat retention approach of cooking, that one can very simply use the thermal absorption of the cookware and the contents of it, meaning the food itself. If you put that into a well-insulated bag or hay box, one can still cook in a with the heat retention. So that is something that is common in as a coupling with the solar cooker. But that's kind of where we are right now. We are also eager for the solar thermal storage systems to really hit the market. Thanks.
Great, thank you. I think we'll have time for one more question, but please note that we have recorded all of these questions that you've typed throughout the webinar, and we would be happy to respond to the questions in written form and post them on the Alliance's website. And hopefully that will be a great way for you to have SCI respond to some of your inquiries. I think maybe a good way to end on a note here is about solar cooker testing. And we have one question here that asks a little bit about this process, and more specifically, are solar cookers tested on site with intended users in any way? And through the usual testing process, is it mostly focused on specifications on the system? Or are you also trying to integrate user experience into it somehow?
Thank you for that question. And yes, the solar cooker testing can happen both at the lab and in the field. And those are the terms that are used at the International Organization for Standardization in the development of testing guidelines. So right now what SCI has available is a lab version of the test, which is to test for the power, the performance of the cook stove. And this particular test, while it's called a lab test, and I do it locally, meaning where I am, but this test station is portable and can also be brought into the field. So at the ISO level, the tests for the field tests and the lab test guidelines for solar cooker performance testing are the same, and that this particular ASAE S580.1 protocol for testing and reporting solar cooker performance is the same. Now, in addition to that, the durability tests that guidelines are being refined for, and the usability tests are also split, meaning there are versions for lab and versions for field. So yes, some will involve working with people in their homes, observations, interviews, and the like. So there really is quite an expansive array of tests that really need to be done, that this is appropriate, and we're eager to expand the testing facilities that we have here at SCI too. So thank you again, and I just wanted to say thanks for Kavanaugh for fielding the questions. Appreciate it very much, or to read off the questions to us. Thanks.
Terrific. I think, unfortunately, we've run over time a little bit because of all these really amazing and really thoughtful questions. We have to unfortunately conclude Q&A. However, as I mentioned, we will gather some of your questions and we will work together on answering some of them in written form. And I also saw that some of you are very interested in getting in touch with SCI and to potentially undergo some collaborative opportunities, which is terrific and always a great outcome of these webinars. So I think this will conclude our webinar. Please note that you can get directly in touch with Julie, Alan, and Caitlin. Their emails and contact information are here. And after this webinar, we will be sharing the recording, which we encourage you to share with your other colleagues and within your networks. And we'll also provide the link to some of the responses. And we also would like for you and appreciate your time in filling out a very quick survey to provide your thoughts and comments on the webinar, and maybe provide any other interesting topics that you would like to hear more about. So we absolutely look forward to receiving your input. So
Kevin, thank you very
Julie.
much.
Yes, thank you so much. I think I can easily confidently speak on behalf of all the participants here. That was a really great presentation. And I also want to thank everyone here on the webinar today for your time, for your participation, and your really great questions. We look forward to seeing you all at the next webinar, and stay tuned for more announcements on other great topics and collaborative opportunities that are happening in the clean cooking sector. Thank you. Take care.
Thanks to everyone.